In mythology, folklore, and religion, a trickster is a god, goddess, demigod, spirit, or sometimes even an animal, which exhibits a great degree of wisdom, occult, or secret knowledge, and uses it or plays tricks or otherwise disobeys normal rules and conventional behavior. These archetypal characters appear in the myths of many different cultures around the world. And I'll go ahead and take a chance and say every single culture, as the mystery behind this boundary crosser actually stems from a forgotten time in prehistory and was passed down from an ancient global civilization from which we all share various degrees of ancestry with. That said, tricksters not only bend or break rules, they're also considered thieves. Now, I got some pushback in the comments section of one of my recent videos called The Emerald Tablets of Hermes or Thoth. I'll leave a link in the description if you haven't seen it. And towards the beginning, I said that the deity Hermes or Mercury was the god of thieves or protector of thieves. And the confusion this caused is the real reason for this video. It seems that people have a tendency to interpret the tricks or stealing as negative activities which go against mankind. But as I will try to articulate in today's episode, that's not necessarily the case. In Greek mythology, Prometheus is a titan and is also a trickster. He's what's known as a cultural hero, and in the context of mythology, a hero is defined as a character who changes the world through invention or discovery, or who contributes to the creation of civilization itself. A typical cultural hero might be credited with the discovery of agriculture, music, or in the case of Prometheus, fire. This archetype is mirrored in many Native American mythologies and beliefs, where the coyote spirit stole fire from the gods and gave it to mankind. So the first point I want to make is the act of stealing in this context is beneficial to mankind. The second point I want to make is that fire in the occult and mystery schools does not mean the heat generated when you strike a match, but another type of fire that is associated with internal alchemy. Natives from the southeastern United States replaced the coyote with a rabbit hero, and Pacific Northwest native stories often feature a raven in this role, where the raven steals fire from his uncle the beaver and eventually gives it to humans. Again, I want to stress that despite what is taught in schools, if it's even taught at all, the context is not about how Homo erectus got fire and learned how to cook with it. We're talking about the fire that ignites the soul, that inspires fine art, that influences music, that's the trigger of new inventions, or the divine spark of creativity that's associated with problem solving. So, as with all religions, these myths should not be taken literally, but one must understand the underlying symbols. Fire is not just the flame, but the light that illuminates. And I'll come back to this a little later. In Norse and Germanic mythology, the god Odin steals the mead of poetry and is credited with the discovery of the runes. The poetic mead is a mythical beverage that's equated with divine inspiration, and whoever drinks it becomes a scholar, able to recite any information and so wise that there are no questions that he cannot answer. In a literal sense, mead is an alcoholic beverage created by fermenting honey with water, sometimes with various fruits, spices, grains, or hops. The alcoholic content ranges from 3.5% to more than 20%. But in the legend, Kvasir is a very wise god that traveled around teaching and spreading knowledge until some dwarves killed him and drained his blood, mixing it with honey, which resulted in the mead of poetry, imbuing whoever drinks it with wisdom, leading to the introduction of poetry to mankind. Now, I hesitate to tell the story of how Odin stole the mead because of potential censorship issues. But let's just say that the precious liquid leaked from another god's rear end, and Odin gave it to those truly gifted in poetry. In the biblical context, the snake in the Garden of Eden story plays the role of the trickster. In Hebrew, the word nekash is used to identify the serpent that appears in Genesis, who is portrayed as a deceptive creature or trickster who cunningly promotes as good what God had forbidden. So keep in mind that the Bible was not written in English. It was translated and retranslated several times before it made it to English. So Nakash is the serpent, the dragon, and Lucifer, or light bearer. So this can be taken the same way that Prometheus was also a light bearer, or light bringer, as Prometheus, from the view of mankind, was the good guy who stole the fire and gave it to man, and for this was punished by Zeus for his defiance against the gods. In Jewish mysticism, we have something called the Zohar, meaning radiance, and is the foundational work of the Kabbalah, which is at the core of many, if not all, secret societies, including those of pre-World War II Germany, including the Vril Society. The teachings include commentary of the mystical aspects of the Torah, which is the first part of the Bible, called the Old Testament, where we find Genesis and the Garden of Eden story. The Zohar contains scriptural interpretations specifically to do with the serpent, or the Lucifer character, which are left out of modern versions of the Bible. The word Lucifer, the light bringer, appears only once in the King James Version and is also a Latin name for the planet Venus, sometimes referred to as morning star, as it sometimes rises in the morning a few hours before the sun. In Isaiah, it says, quote, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning?" Because of this one sentence, Lucifer has become equated with Satan, the devil, and the prince of darkness, which is actually pretty ironic if you think about it. So what does the light-bearing serpent tell Eve in the garden that has been left out of most mainstream renditions of ancient scripture? The source of the clip that I'm about to play for you comes from the work of Heinrich Arnold Krumm Heller, a German naval intelligence officer, Rosicrucian, and founder of a Hermetic order that operates in Brazil. He was also the private doctor of the Mexican president Francisco Madero, and went by the motto Huiracocha, the name of a white god of creation once worshipped by the Incas of Peru. That said, he attained the highest rank available as far as secret societies go, and was held in high esteem by Samuel Ein Weyor, and it is one of Weyor's students who will be speaking in this brief excerpt on the secrets of Baphomet, and giving more context of the role of the thief in mythology, and what is meant by stealing the fire of the gods, and how it relates to eating the forbidden fruit from the tree of knowledge.
That was a great initiate that Master Samael Onveor knew in South America, whose name was the Dr. Arnold Krumm Heller, a great physician, doctor, from the University of Berlin. His inner name was Huiracocha. Master Samael Onveor mentioned Huiracocha in his book, The Perfect Matrimony. And he said, "This is the mystery of Baphomet. Instead of the coitus, which reaches the sweet caresses, amorous phrases, and delicate touching should be lavished reflectively, keeping the mind constantly separated from animal, sustaining the purest spirituality as if the act were a true religious ceremony. Nevertheless, the man can and should introduce the and keep it inside the feminine to bring about a divine sensation upon both full of joy, that can last for hours, withdrawing it at the moment the is near to avoid the ejaculation of. The transmission of magnetic fluids is ordinarily done through the hands and through the eyes. But it is necessary to say that there is no greater and more powerful conductor, 1,000 times more powerful, 1,000 times superior to others, than the virile member and the vulva as receptive organs. This is what Master Viracocha said. He, in other words, were disclosing the power of Baphomet. But many people didn't understand, even though he was also clear. This is the mystery of Baphomet. This is what the Master Samael Onveo wrote in the book Igneous Rose. He says, the rose elaborates its perfume with the clay of the earth, which is the physicality. The slithering worm does not like the gardener who removes its clay. Our disciples will now comprehend on what basis do the tenebrous ones qualify the sexual alchemists as thieves. And the proof is this. When you read the book of Genesis chapter 2, verse 25, the very bottom of that chapter, it is written, and they were both naked. But we put in parentheses the word that they use for naked. If you copy that word and put it in the dictionary, you will see that has many meanings. And one of the meanings is thievish. And it's because it is precisely what an alchemist, a Templar, the one that knows the mystery of Baphomet, does. He steals the sexual force of nature. You have to know how to steal the energy from your own physicality, because that physicality, that flesh, is your own body. Master Samael says, or the Genesis says, and they were both thievish, Adam and his wife, and were not ashamed, because they were stealing from their own development, spiritual development. Now the devotees of the path will understand why Christ said, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force. Because this is how you develop the forces of heaven within you. The forces of heaven descends in your physicality, and you take it by force, by willpower. It's not easy. The weak succumb in the sexual act. And that's the mystery of Baphomet. You have to be a thief. And that's why the tenebrous, the fornicators from Klipoth, accuse the alchemists of being thieves. Because we, when we transmute, we are really thieves. We like to steal for God. But it's not stealing like in this physical world, money or dollars, because that's stupid. He's stealing from his own energy, his own force, his own physicality. And you transmute the sexual force. That's the mystery of Baphomet. That is taught by Moses through his Kabbalah in all the book of Genesis. When you are in the sexual act, you are touching the tree of life. But remember the commandment, don't eat of it. You touch the tree and you eat the fruit, and that's precisely the problem. You can touch it, but don't eat it. Because by touching it is how you transform the energy and feed your spirit, your soul. But if you eat it, when you fornicate, you make lust, and then the rest of egos inside. And you become idolatrous. Even if you don't have in your home statues and you think that only God you worship, but you are a fornicator, you are also a killer. Because you are killing the life. Or as in esotericism we say, any bodhisattva that falls into animal generation is accused of having killed the god Mercury, or the Mercurius, which is the sexual energy. What are you performing when you are in fornication? The Zohar explains the different. You are a thief as well, but a bad thief. After the orgasm of the animals. And the serpent said unto the woman, this is the next graphic, ye shall not surely die, for Elohim doth know that in the day you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as Elohim, knowing good and evil. But when you eat it as God, or with God, together with God, and you eat it, and then your eyes are open. But it's written that Adam and Eve, or whether Eve tasted the fruit, which was the orgasm that they taste, and give it to the brain. And both saw that they were naked completely, without energy, without force. So we have two serpents here. The first is the tempting serpent, and the other is the serpent that gives life, which is the Kundalini. Humanity is following, of course, the tempting serpent. Because in the sexual embrace, when the flesh is receiving that magnetism in male and female, they enter into the temple, but to fornicate. And that's precisely to filth the tabernacle of God. Not to eat means to perform the sexual act and to transmute. To eat means to reach the orgasm, the spasm of the animals, which in this planet Earth, everybody is eating, having a feast of the apple of tree, right? But you have to be careful, because in the sexual act you have to be, if you want to learn, you have to start little by little. Don't start like great master of Tantra, that practice hours. The master Viracocha says they can endure for hours, right? But you say, the master Viracocha says that can endure for hours, but you are not a master. He was a master Viracocha. He says you have to start. The master Samael says you have to start for 5 minutes, 15 minutes, or as much as you can tolerate, in order to teach your body, because the serpent is wiser. Is the wiser animal of all the Hayot that were created.
So you said that, it says in Genesis, you shall not touch it. But then you said we can touch the tree. So which one is it? We can touch it. We can't touch it. Obviously.
What Jehovah Elohim said is that you shall not eat of it. Right? And the woman says, not even touch it. Right? But then the serpent, according to Zohar, said, no. The thing is, you shall not eat. You can touch it. Look, I touch it and I don't die. And it's true. Because the Elohim touched it and I don't die. But if you eat it, you will die. But and then when Eve said, okay, I will touch it and I will try not to eat it. But she ate it and gave it to Adam. And they liked the orgasm. He says, this is a good fruit. He says that you forgot about that. It's for animals, not for us. And then they are kicked out of Eden, etc., etc. Withdraw before the orgasm. This is the way in order to be born again. Women are, in past times, chaste by nature. But in this day and age, there's a lot of pornography there and filthy things that teach the woman how to reach bad. In other words, the woman had to be more bestial as she already is, and how the man can be more bestial as he already is. But remember, The choice is yours. Take the path of the good or the evil. It's up to you. When you are in a sexual act, God is one. And if you pollute the sexual act, you are insulting that only God within you. Thank you very much.
Ecstasy, or samadhi, is not a nebulous state, but a transcendental state of wonderment, which is associated with perfect mental clarity. On one given night, while in profound internal meditation, I abandoned this illusory world of Maya. Thus, liberated from the shackles of this bitter existence, I submerged myself into samadhi within the world of the spirit. There is no better pleasure than feeling oneself as a soul detached from the body, the affections, and the mind. Samuel Ann Weor. My name is Robert Sepehr. I'm an independent anthropologist and author. My published books are available on Amazon.com. Kindly check them out if you're interested in the material I cover in these videos. I appreciate all of the Patreon subscribers, and to those who have made a donation to Atlantean Gardens, thank you very much. And to those who contribute their time and effort by sharing these videos, I thank you very much as well. So please leave me a comment. Let me know your thoughts. Be safe, and I will see you again soon.